The Lore, Characters, and Chapters Breakdown of A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Chapter 2, The Price of the Wolf. Feyre survived the forest. She killed the wolf. She found enough food to keep her family alive, and after carrying that salvation for miles through the snow, she finally reaches home. But Chapter 2 reveals something important. The deer isn't the heaviest thing Feyre is carrying. For years, she has carried her sisters, her father, their hunger, their future. And underneath all of it, a promise she made when she was far too young to understand what it would cost. By the time Feyre leaves the forest, the sun has disappeared. She's exhausted, nearly numb, and struggling beneath the weight of the deer. Yet even here, Maas reminds us that Feyre still sees the world like an artist. The blue winter landscape, warm light spilling from the cottage. For a moment, even this broken little house can look beautiful, and around its doors and windows are symbols supposedly meant to protect the family from fairies. Except Feyre knows they're worthless. Her father traded one of his carvings to a wandering fraud for those markings. There is no magic in them, no real protection, and that's an interesting image for the Archeron family itself. From outside, the cottage represents safety, family, home, but the moment Feyre steps inside, we begin to understand that she has never truly been protected here. She's the one doing the protecting. Elaine is the first to react, but what catches her attention isn't Feyre's exhaustion. It isn't the blood, it's the deer, food. Her first concern is how quickly Feyre can prepare it, and Chapter 2 makes an important distinction here. Elaine isn't presented as deliberately cruel. She simply doesn't think to help. Getting blood beneath her fingernails hasn't become part of her world. Nesta is different, sharper, more openly resentful, and their father remains beside the hearth, injured, withdrawn, present but rarely useful. So while all 4 members of the family are hungry, only one of them has spent the day risking her life to change that. Feyre has become the family's provider, not because she was chosen, not because she was the eldest, not because she was strongest, but because years earlier, when someone finally had to act, Feyre acted. But tucked inside all this bitterness is evidence that the Archeron sisters are more complicated than they first appear. During one unusually good summer, Elaine gave Feyre something precious. Paint. Only 3 colors. Red, yellow, blue, and Feyre used them everywhere. Flowers around the windows, vines across the thresholds, little flames beside the hearth, tiny pieces of beauty hidden throughout a house defined by poverty. Feyre buys Elaine seeds when she can. Elaine once bought Feyre paint. Neither gesture feeds anyone, neither keeps winter away, but both reveal something that survival hasn't completely destroyed. They still know how to give each other beauty. And these fading paintings become more than decoration. They're evidence that another Feyre exists beneath the hunter, a girl who wants to create something that lasts. The tragedy is that almost everything she creates here is slowly disappearing. Then we begin to understand their father. The Archerons weren't always poor. They once had wealth, status, servants, a very different life. When that fortune collapsed, the consequences weren't merely financial. One of their father's creditors eventually came to collect what could no longer be paid, and the punishment left Feyre's father permanently injured. Nesta and Elaine hid. Feyre stayed. She was still a child, and she witnessed enough violence that the memory remains carved into her. Her father's body eventually recovered enough for him to walk, but something else never completely recovered: his will. When the family's money finally disappeared and Feyre announced that she would begin hunting, he didn't stop her. He simply let her walk into woods that experienced hunters feared. This is where the family's roles quietly reverse. The father stops being the protector, and the youngest daughter becomes one. Then her father notices the wolf skin, and unlike the others, he understands immediately that this wasn't an ordinary hunt. The animal was enormous, dangerous, something Feyre should never have faced alone. For one of the first times in the chapter, someone looks beyond the food and sees the risk she took to bring it home. Her father is frightened by what might have happened. Feyre's response is simple. There was no alternative, and that's the tragedy of her relationship with him. She doesn't necessarily need gratitude. She needs action. She needs someone else to carry part of this responsibility, because without Feyre hunting, there is no deer on the table, no meat to preserve, no hides to sell, no plan for next week. She isn't angry because her father is injured. She's angry because, long after his body began to recover, the burden remained hers. And almost immediately, the deer becomes money that hasn't even been earned yet. Elaine wants a warmer cloak. Nesta wants new boots. Meanwhile, Feyre's own boots are falling apart. There is barely any firewood left. Nesta was supposed to chop more. She didn't, and when Feyre asks her to do it in the morning, Nesta refuses. It's tempting to reduce this scene to a simple equation. Feyre works, Nesta doesn't. But what's happening is uglier than laziness alone. Poverty has frozen each member of this family in a different way. Elaine retreats toward beauty. Their father retreats into memory and helplessness. Nesta clings desperately to the status and dignity they lost, and Feyre responds by becoming relentlessly practical. Food, wood, money, tomorrow, next week, survival. The problem is that practicality has become so completely Feyre's responsibility that everyone else has learned to depend upon it. And then Chapter 2 gives us the reason Feyre hasn't simply left. Years earlier, as their mother was dying, she asked something of Feyre. Not Nesta, not Elaine, not their father. Feyre. She made her youngest daughter promise to keep the family together and look after them. Feyre was only a child, too young to understand why this responsibility had been given to her, too young to understand what keeping that promise might eventually require. But she agreed. And in Feyre's world, promises matter. So every hunt, every freezing morning, every meal she gives away, every coin she hides, every time she wants to walk toward the horizon and never return, that promise pulls her back, and sometimes she hates her mother for it. Because what sounded like a final request from a dying parent gradually became the architecture of Feyre's entire life. Nesta has her own escape plan. A young man named Thomas Mandray is interested in marrying her. To Nesta, marriage represents something Feyre understands very well, a way out, a different house, a different future, perhaps a life where hunger doesn't dictate every decision. But Feyre immediately begins calculating. Thomas's family isn't wealthy. The Archerons have no dowry, no livestock, almost nothing of value. And Feyre has seen enough of Thomas to distrust the fantasy Nesta has built around him. So once again, Feyre becomes the person saying what no one wants to hear. Love doesn't automatically create food, marriage doesn't automatically create security, and desperation can make a dangerous future look like salvation. Nesta hears something very different. She hears her younger sister trying to control her. Their argument turns vicious, and Nesta finds exactly the wound she knows how to open. Nesta attacks the fear Feyre almost never says aloud, that one day nobody will remember her, that all this work, all the hunting, all the sacrifice, all the years she has given this family, might leave no permanent mark at all. It's why the paintings matter. Feyre creates things because some part of her desperately wants proof that she was here, that she was more than the person who brought home meat. But even those little flowers are fading, and her father offers an answer Feyre isn't prepared to accept. Nesta needs hope. Perhaps people need hope almost as much as they need food, because without the belief that tomorrow can become something better, survival eventually becomes meaningless. Chapter 1 showed us how Feyre survives. Chapter 2 shows us why she refuses to stop. Her strength isn't simply physical, it's obligation, a promise, a family that depends upon her, and perhaps a fear that if she ever stops being useful, there will be nothing left to prove she mattered. But the chapter also introduces another idea. Feyre believes survival is about accepting reality exactly as it is. Her father believes people also need to imagine something better. Feyre looks at the fading flower she once painted, at this family, at this life, and right now she cannot imagine a better world. But tomorrow? She is taking the wolf's hide to market, and the consequences of that hunt are beginning to move beyond the forest.